Exposed. The inspiring journey of a woman. Unexpectedly pregnant with a millionaire's child. Grace Miller awoke to the familiar scent of fresh coffee wafting through her small kitchen. The sun spilled warm light into her modest Maplewood home, illuminating the stacked medical charts on her desk and the quiet promise of another day in her routine. At 32, she had settled into the rhythm of her life as a nurse, a demanding but gratifying profession. But lately, an unfamiliar yearning began to flicker within her. An insistent whisper that perhaps there was something more beyond the simple joys of small-town life, something waiting just outside her grasp. That yearning grew louder one fateful evening as she found herself at a charity gala, the opulence of which starkly contrasted with her life of scrubs and bustling hospital corridors. The soft lights shimmered like stars, each facet of glamorous decor whispering allure. As she mingled, a presence loomed across the room, Jack Weston. Rumor had it he was ruthless, a man whose ambition left a trail of broken deals. Yet with every laugh they shared and every gentle word exchanged, Grace felt a crack in the carefully constructed walls around her heart. Her pulse quickened at the thought. Could she dare to dream of a different life, one woven with golden threads of security and passion? No sooner had she embraced this spark of hope than her world twisted upon discovering she was pregnant with Jack's child. The weight of the news crashed upon her like a tidal wave, sending tremors through her very being. The tightly knit community of Maplewood would no doubt spiral into frenzy, and the backlash of being a single mother-to-be loomed impassively. Would they shun her for her choices? Would they question her integrity as they whispered behind her back? The anxiety gripped her, a cold hand tightening around her throat, constricting with each breath. And yet, she felt a warmth blossom at the thought of nurturing her child, a part of her that deserved their chance. Before she could even process the implications, whispers about Jack's business ventures reached her ears, revealing stories of exploitation and unethical practices. This was no dream, but a spiral into an abyss of moral crisis. She paced in circles, her mind racing. Should she dive into this world of wealth, offering her child a future of abundance, or stand firm in her belief that integrity and hard work should be the pillars upon which a life is built? Anxiety buzzed in her head like a swarm of wasps, conveying dire warnings against the toxic allure of Jack's lifestyle. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The shadows of judgment enveloped her, sparking a sense of urgency. Torn between the deep-rooted desire for security for her unborn child and the undeniable truth of Jack's dealings, Grace pondered. Could love exist amidst such turmoil? Summoning every ounce of courage, she resolved to confront him. The thought sent a shiver coursing through her, yet a flicker of hope stirred within. Just as determination began to take hold, an unsettling revelation crashed against her resolve, a discovery that would change everything and potentially endanger her child's future. As secrets began to unfurl around her, doubts pierced deep into her core. Would she trust a man whose wealth might come from the suffering of others? Would she stand firm in her values, or risk everything to chase a life painted in prosperity, but tainted by despair? The wind outside whispered stories of both hope and despair, circling around her, leaving her breathless at the precipice of an uncertain future. Would she fall or fly? Would she find her answers in the arms of troubling affluence, or carve out a path that stayed true to her heart? With a single decision looming on the horizon, Grace felt the stakes rising once more, each moment teetering between joy and despair, leaving her wondering who she could trust and what the future really held. Grace stood in the dim light of her kitchen, her fingers trembling as they clutched her mug of coffee. Each sip brought with it not just warmth, but the bitter aftertaste of uncertainty. She could hear the rush of her heart pounding against the confining walls of her chest, echoing her dilemma. Time was running out for her to make sense of her feelings for Jack Weston and the future of her unborn child. The opulent world he inhabited was right next to her, yet she felt an insurmountable chasm between them. It felt like stepping into quicksand every moment she pondered her next move. The decision to confront Jack loomed heavily as a cloud in her mind. She had thought about it every waking moment, attempting to sift through the right words that could articulate her turmoil. She was not only grappling with her feelings for him, but also with the moral implications of the lifestyle he represented. Did she have the strength to oppose the influence his wealth could wield over her life and the life of their child? When she finally made up her mind to approach him, it wasn't just about her feelings anymore. She found herself empowered by the necessity of protecting the innocent life growing inside her. She realized that her identity was morphing into something new. No longer was she simply Grace, the nurse from Maplewood. She was becoming Grace, a mother, and that title would redefine her purpose and priorities. With no clear plan, she headed to the lavish apartment complex downtown, a place so foreign to her sensibilities. As she entered the impressively designed lobby, the overzealous receptionist cast curious glances, and she suddenly felt out of place among the extravagant furnishings. The internal battle that had brewed within her erupted into the open for all to see. Who was she to challenge a man like Jack? What right did she have to confront him about his morals and choices when her own life seemed to be fragmented? Grace's feet remained rooted in place for a heartbeat longer than she felt comfortable. Would she hold her ground or retreat into the protection of silence? The image of her child pulled her forward. She had rehearsed these moments over and over. Her fight wasn't solely for herself anymore. It was for their future together. Finally, she found herself at Jack's door. Her knuckles knocked tentatively against the wooden surface, but she was shocked by how quickly the adrenaline surged through her veins. This was the moment. The brief silence that followed her knock filled her with dread, but also a thrill that had lain dormant since their encounter at the gala. When the door opened, Jack's surprised expression morphed into concern upon seeing her own. The tension crackled between them like electricity. There was more than just curiosity in his eyes. Something deeper flickered, an invitation to connect, to understand. "Grace," he breathed, stepping aside. "Come in." As she crossed the threshold, she felt both the safety of his space and the unsettling awareness of everything it represented. The walls of luxury surrounded her, but in that moment, all she could see was the man standing before her. The man she had to confront about the truth. "Jack, we need to talk," she said, surprising even herself with the steadiness of her voice. The gravity of her words settled between them, a heavy anchor that signaled the turning point in their relationship. Jack's expression shifted from surprise to seriousness as he nodded. "Okay, I'm listening." With that, Grace held her breath, sensing the weight of her resolve. Her journey was about to shift direction. The answers she sought could either propel her into a world of security or plunge her into chaos. As Jack's gaze remained fixed on her, she understood that this conversation would set the course for both their futures and potentially expose the inner truths hidden from each other. But what Jack didn't know was that under the surface, Grace was about to uncover secrets that transcended wealth and ambition. As the conversation unfolded, would they both emerge as allies or adversaries? And would Grace find the inner strength to embrace her role as a mother while navigating a moral labyrinth? Grace felt a rush of adrenaline pulsing through her veins as she settled into the plush armchair across from Jack. The contrast of his sleek apartment and her own unrefined world intensified the gravity of their conversation. As she faced him, her heart hammered, amplifying her awareness of the stakes involved. Jack leaned forward, a frown creasing his brow. "What's on your mind?" His tone was earnest, but it sparked a flicker of doubt within Grace. Would he really listen? She took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage. "I can't pretend everything is fine anymore." The words tumbled out before she could second-guess herself. "We need to discuss your life and how it will affect our child. My child." He opened his mouth as if to speak, but the silence swallowed him whole. Instead, he ran a hand through his hair, clearly wrestling with his emotions. "Grace, I want to support you. You know that, right? Support." The word lingered in the air, heavy with implications. She recognized his desire to help, but the question loomed. How could she accept support from someone whose world felt so foreign, and whose values clashed with her own? This was about more than financial assistance. It was about values and the environment in which their child would grow. "Jack, I need to know if you really understand what this means." Her voice trembled slightly as she continued. "Your lifestyle doesn't just come with nice things. It carries expectations and a level of frivolity that I'm not sure I want for my child." His expression shifted to one of surprise, probably not expecting her to assert her thoughts so forcefully. "I never thought of it that way. Growing up, I never had to contend with the things you're talking about." Her instincts screamed at her to pull back, to retreat to the safety of neutrality. But something deep within her, the mother instinct, pushed her to stand firm. "And that's what concerns me. I've seen what wealth can do to families, Jack. It can distort values, create entitlement. I don't want our child to grow up in a bubble, disconnected from what truly matters." He straightened, a flicker of anger flashing in his eyes as he defended. "So am I supposed to give all of this up? Live a life of scarcity? My success is a part of who I am." "Success is subjective," Grace snapped, her own frustration bubbling to the surface. "It's not about the money in your bank account. It's about love, responsibility, and integrity." The atmosphere between them thickened, charged with unspoken truths. Jack's brows furrowed as he processed her words, a whirlwind of realization clearly brewing beneath the surface. He had built a life of luxury, yet here he sat, confronted by the raw sincerity of a woman determined to forge a different kind of future. "I want to support you, Grace, but it seems like you're asking me to abandon everything," he countered, but she could see the chinks forming in his armor. The seeds of doubt were taking root, and she pressed on. "I'm not asking you to abandon anything. I'm asking you to consider what we're cultivating together. Our child deserves a chance to experience the world without superficial barriers." His silence spoke volumes, a mix of contemplation and his struggle to align his lifestyle with this new reality. The moment stretched, heavy with uncertainty, until Jack finally spoke, his voice softer, almost vulnerable. "What do you want from me then? What does that look like?" Grace felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. This was the pivotal moment, one that could shatter or forge the pathway ahead. "I want us to figure this out together. No pretense, just honesty and respect for our choices." She hated the unresolved tension, but a flicker of clarity ignited within her. This conversation would redefine their lives, and perhaps it could blossom into something stronger than she ever imagined. But would Jack be receptive enough to take those difficult steps alongside her? As uncertainty loomed like a storm cloud, Grace prepared herself for a reality check. Jack's willingness to accept this challenge would either make or break them. "Are you ready to face this together?" she asked softly, a question laden with everything she hoped they could achieve. His gaze remained steady, a mirror reflecting both trepidation and potential solution. "I'm willing, but it'll require more than just words." Grace felt a flicker of pride bubbling inside her. It was the first time she had truly asserted herself. She was transforming, layering purpose onto her identity as a mother. But as the conversation continued, an unsettling thought began to entwine her mind. Behind the veil of Jack's wealth, did he hold a darkness she had yet to uncover? What hidden truths waited to surface, threatening not only their partnership but the future of their child? Grace sat in the serenity of Jack's apartment, the ambient sounds of the bustling city outside muffled by the walls that had both encapsulated them in this moment and alienated them from one another. She struggled to reconcile his polished exterior with the uncertainties swirling in her mind. Was she truly ready to delve deeper into his world, one she could never truly embrace? I need to understand your ideals, Jack. What do you value? His brow furrowed in thought, revealing the conflict sparking behind his calm demeanor. I see value in ambition and achievement, Grace. I often think about how I can give our child the best, opportunities I never had. His perspective was rooted in a good intention, yet it ignited a deeper unease in her. The best? It would never equate to love, authenticity, or growth. She wanted their child to have roots, not just luxurious branches that extended into an isolated sky. Curiosity overcame her hesitation. What is the best to you? Is it material wealth? A prestigious education? Or is it the freedom to be oneself, even if that means embracing less than perfection? His eyes narrowed as if he were calculating a risky equation. Well, I figured having connections and options opens doors. If that's what it takes to provide, then so be it. Does it? She challenged. What about teaching resilience, compassion, and humility? Her heart raced. She was drawing the line further, uncovering aspects of his character she hadn't explicitly examined before. Jack shifted in his chair as discomfort etched his brow. Grace, I get your point, but wealth can secure a future. Isn't that what matters? Her resolve solidified. No, Jack. What matters is how we raise our child to understand the world. Wealth will not shield them from hardship, but it can muddle their understanding of it. She leaned in, her voice steadying with conviction. I had to face my struggles head-on. That shaped me. Isn't that worth something? For a fleeting moment, his gaze turned inward, as if her words struck a chord within him. Grace sensed walls crumbling slightly, but doubt flickered as rapidly as hope ignited within her. Maybe you're right about some things, he conceded cautiously, rubbing the back of his neck as if the weight of his own privilege pressed down on him. But can I transform my entire lifestyle? Can I risk what I've built? Her heart softened as she realized the fear embedded within him. It's not about abandoning everything, Jack. It's about evolving. You can keep your success, but aligning it with who you are becoming is where the beauty lies. You have to be willing to sacrifice the superficial for the significant. A tense silence hung between them, each contemplating the enormity of the journey she proposed. Jack's vulnerability became palpable. He teetered on the precipice of personal evolution. Then help me, he finally said, his voice laced with uncertainty. Show me how to create that reality together. I want our child to know it all, wealth and true worth. Grace's chest swelled with a mix of admiration and caution. This was the moment of truth for both of them, testing the boundaries of their expectations and compatibility. I can guide you, she said softly, but we must approach the world beyond privilege with humility. We need to be open, to learn from others and not just from books or money. She could almost see the gears working in his mind, the possibility of transformation flickering in his eyes. But lurking behind that potential was something deeper, perhaps a sense of fear that her assertion would unleash truths he might not be ready to face. Grace remembered suddenly her own vulnerabilities, the pillars of her past still haunted by the choices she had made to find strength. Could they overcome the emotional scars, the unvoiced fears that threatened the love blossoming between them? Every journey begins with one step, she said, her tone steady but challenging. Are you ready to take it? As she posed the question, fear gripped her heart. Had she invited a change both of them weren't truly prepared for? A subtle tension twisted in the air. Jack's eyes met hers, seeking an answer that resided not in her, but within his soul, stirring something deep inside that had long been dormant. The moment had arrived for Grace to confront not just Jack's walls but her own. The uncertainty lay ahead, looming with uncharted risks, yet she stood on the brink of an awakening. Would he choose to explore the depths of his spirit and the significance their child deserved? Only time would tell if this growing resolve would triumph in an intricate dance between love and fear. Grace woke the next morning with the sun spilling through the apartment windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The resonance of last night lingered, filling her thoughts with both excitement and trepidation. She had taken a step toward a conversation that could change not just Jack, but the trajectory of their future together. But now, she was left questioning her own readiness to navigate this shared path. As she prepared breakfast, thoughts spiraled around the emotional impact of Jack's willingness to evolve. Could he really commit to moving beyond the privilege he knew, acknowledging the world outside his insulated walls without retreating in fear? She scratched her head, but the echoes of doubt persisted. Who was she to guide someone of his status? The enormity of his transformation weighed heavily on her heart, every bit as daunting as her ambition to cultivate a life well lived. Her phone chimed, breaking the reverie. It was a message from Jack, simple yet charged with significance. "Can we talk again today? I've been thinking." Grace felt the flutter of anticipation and anxiety all at once. This conversation would be pivotal, another chance to intertwine their lives in understanding. She replied with an affirmative, but felt the layers of fear stacking up again. What if their discussion stalled? What if they began to circle back to old habits that stifled growth? Later in the afternoon, Grace arrived at the small cafe they had agreed to meet in. The aroma of coffee surrounded her, filling her senses as she took in the warm decor. She settled into a corner, anticipation bubbling within her. Each second felt drawn out as she contemplated her own aspirations, how to guide Jack without compromising her own ideals. The bell above the door jingled, and there he was. Jack's almost frantic energy permeated the air as he approached her table. His expression was a blend of determination and apprehension, an echo of the paradox they faced. "I've been thinking," he said, taking a seat with a slight exhale, "about changes I can actually make." "What did you mean about understanding the world beyond privilege?" Grace took a moment, her mind accelerating. He was not just seeking superficial answers. He was asking for depth. "It means immersing ourselves in the realities that exist outside our immediate experience. It's about listening, Jack. People in struggle have stories that can teach resilience in a way wealth never can." His brows furrowed slightly. "So we need to engage? With others who have less?" "Yes, but it's more than just engagement. It's empathy without preconceptions. It's about losing the filters we usually wear that separate us. You need to truly step into others' shoes, to experience their realities firsthand." Jack sat back, his fingers tented under his chin as he absorbed her words. "And how do I begin? I feel so far removed from that world." "For a start, maybe we can volunteer. Find ways to connect as individuals rather than through your status. You have access to opportunities that many don't. Use it to foster genuine relationships," Grace suggested, her heart pounding at the edges of her own anxiety. The prospect brought a spark of intrigue to Jack's eyes, but also a flicker of apprehension. "It won't be easy." "Nothing worthwhile ever is," she replied firmly. "But remember, we're not solving problems. We're growing." Jack nodded, determination settling in his expression. As they continued discussing specifics about where to volunteer, a new connection ignited between them. Each word exchanged became a building block, fostering both ambition and authenticity. Yet beneath the surface, Grace felt a deeper worry brewing. What if Jack's commitment to change only scratched the surface? What if she became frustrated by his inability or unwillingness to truly engage? Could her own ideals withstand the strain? The foundations of their bond felt both fragile and vital, swinging between the possibilities of growth and the fear of regression. By the end of their conversation, an undeniable shift had occurred. Jack appeared invigorated, ignited by a newfound purpose. Grace, too, felt emboldened. They were beginning to step into a wider world together. But with every inch of progress came a deeper awareness of the obstacles that loomed ahead, challenges that would test the durability of their union. As they stood to leave, The cafe's ambiance flickered around them, reflective of the tumult of emotions she carried within. Could their rapidly expanding vision withstand the trials to come? Grace felt the weight of unanswered questions hovering in the air, daring them to confront the realities they would undoubtedly face on their newfound journey. Jack paused momentarily. "Grace, do you really think this is going to work?" It was the question that shone the spotlight back on her fears. Did she have enough faith in both him and herself to embrace this endeavor fully? As her mind raced with the implications, she realized that this journey was not merely his. It was hers, too. "What I do know," she replied, holding his gaze with fierce conviction, "is that taking the first step is only the beginning." But just behind that conviction loomed an unsettling truth. Jack's journey into humility was only part of the equation. She had to reckon with her own desire for control and certainty as they embraced the unknown together. Would they confront the truths that lay waiting in the shadows? The unspoken held its breath between them, waiting for the moment when the facade would crack, revealing the struggles they had yet to face. The following days dashed forward with an urgency that felt almost electric. Each moment was imbued with a blend of hope and anxiety as Grace and Jack embarked on their newfound venture into volunteer work. Grace felt a gravitational pull toward the idea that they could enact real change, both in their lives and the lives of those they would meet. But doubt gnawed at her, whispering questions that haunted her thoughts. What if Jack was not capable of the depth required? What if he faltered in the heat of reality? They settled on a local shelter, serving hot meals to people experiencing homelessness. And as they pulled up to the building, Grace felt her heart pound with a mixture of excitement and dread. The shelter, a modest brick building surrounded by faded facades, seemed to exude stories of struggle. She caught Jack's eye and offered a cautious smile, hoping to instill courage. "You ready?" she asked, her voice unsteady. Jack nodded, but she could see the tension in his posture. The facade of confidence had a faint crack, and she apprehensively considered what lay ahead. As they stepped inside, the clattering of trays and whispers bridged the gap between two worlds, the privileged and the underprivileged, where empathy would need to reign over preconceived notions. At first, Jack interacted with hesitance, his elite upbringing evident in his meticulous manners and unsure gestures. Grace tried to guide him, suggesting he listen more than speak at the beginning. They were there to learn, not to save. Yet Jack often fumbled for words, stammering through pleasantries as if grappling for a rope thrown into stormy waters. This response both frustrated and saddened her. Was this the depth of his commitment? After a couple of hours on the line, something shifted. A man named Derek, with weathered skin and a disarming smile, began chatting with Jack while they served food. Grace observed, her heart quickening when she recognized a spark of connection ignite between them. Jack's shoulders relaxed, and his laughter rang out with a newfound authenticity. Here, among those he had once seen as other, he began to find common ground. "I appreciate that you care enough to help out here," Derek said to Jack, his tone friendly but edged with skepticism. "A lot of people think they're doing good when really, they just want to feel better about themselves." Grace's heart raced as she sensed the challenge in Derek's words. She held her breath, veering between hope and dread as she anticipated Jack's response. Would he retreat into shell-like defensiveness, or embrace this confrontation as a pivotal moment? Jack's eyes narrowed slightly before he replied, "It's true. I've lived a privileged life. But I'm here to change that. I want to understand, to be part of something real." There was a seriousness about him, as though he were peeling away layers that had long defined his identity. Grace could hardly breathe, confronting the magnitude of what this moment represented. It wasn't just Jack reaching out. It was her own ambitions undergoing a painful metamorphosis. As much as she longed for his transformation, she needed to recognize her role here too. Were they building bridges together, or would their ideals create an insurmountable chasm? As the afternoon wore on, Jack became more engaged, stepping out of his comfort zone. He listened closely, asked probing questions, and genuinely absorbed the stories swirling around him. Conversely, Grace found herself grappling with her own cadence in the narrative being rewritten. Every piece of the puzzle shifted. Her validation flickered, just as Jack's confidence blossomed. But as they made their way home afterward, Grace's mind raced. Had it truly shifted? Or was this simply a fleeting moment fueled by idealism? Her insistent doubts bubbled again, bearing down with faces of past relationships, tainted by superficial understanding. This was the reality check she dreaded. "Grace," Jack began, breaking the silent car ride. "I really feel like this could change me." His voice was both hopeful and trepidatious. Her heart clenched tightly. "But is it enough to take you where you want to go?" He seemed taken aback, searching for the words that weren't coming. "Maybe, for starters?" "Perhaps," Grace said softly. "But we need to define what this means for both of us. Are we walking into commitment or chaos?" Her breath caught in her throat as she spoke, realizing that this doubt could spin their endeavor off its course as easily as it could propel it forward. "We'll navigate it together," he insisted. But beneath the surface, both of them felt the tremors of uncertainty that accompanied vulnerability. What awaited them at the next step? As Grace grappled with her own yearning for control, the lingering question echoed in her psyche. Could she truly let go enough to allow Jack's growth to unfold, even if it meant risking her own expectations? The tension built, an anticipation of what the next volunteer session would bring. In that moment, Grace felt the intricate weave of their journey pull tighter, not just of Jack's evolution, but her own. But with every connection forged, the necessity for introspection became undeniable. Was she, too, prepared for the commitment of embracing discomfort in the name of real transformation? Their inevitable next encounter teased the air, filled with promise and uncertainty, poised at the brink of revelation, and she could sense that the moment of truth was fast approaching. The day arrived, creeping in with a coolness that belied the simmering tension between Grace and Jack. The air was thick with unspoken agreements and tentative hopes that seemed on the verge of ebbing and flowing like a tide. It was their second volunteer shift, and the stakes felt higher. Not just for Jack, but for Grace as well. She pulled into the shelter parking lot, heart thrumming as she stepped out, searching for a semblance of resolve. "Here we go," she murmured to herself, fighting back the rush of anxiety that threatened to envelop her. Jack must have sensed her unease, as he gave her an encouraging nod, though she could still see the uneasiness flickering in his eyes. Perhaps it was a reflection of her own turmoil. Once inside, the familiar sounds of the kitchen surrounded them. Chatter, laughter, the clatter of metal utensils. But this time, Grace felt compelled to take charge, an assertion of purpose in contrast to her previous hesitance. She had begun to realize that her own journey was as essential as Jack's. While he worked on dismantling the barriers built around him, she wanted to clarify how her aspirations were intertwined with his. As they donned their aprons, Grace's confidence felt renewed, a stark contrast to the uncertainty that clouded Jack. She positioned herself near the serving line, keenly aware of those around her, drawn into their stories instead of merely observing from a distance. She had shed the cautious observer label, embracing an identity rooted in action. She watched as Jack approached a group huddled at a table, initiating conversation with a man whose eyes held shadows of lost potential. Grace could see the tension in Jack's body as he stumbled over words, stepping carefully like a child learning to walk. But this time, there was a firmness in Jack's approach, a willingness that hadn't been there before. With every exchange, Grace felt their collective effort transform the atmosphere. Conversations danced with authenticity. Each laugh shared was a tangible shift in perception. They were not saviors. They were a part of something profound yet everyday, a connective fabric binding disparate lives. "There's something in what you're doing here," the man had said when Jack shared his aspirations. "But understand, It's gonna test you. Grace bit her lip. This was the crux of both their journeys, testing the limits of internal beliefs, facing the discomforting truths they had long evaded. When was the last time she had willingly ventured into her own discomfort? Had she built defenses that prevented her from fully embracing her ambitions? As she watched Jack unearth layers of connection, she recognized the mirror being held up to her face. "Jack," she called, as he stepped away from the grouping, breathless and animated. "You're doing well. It's evident you're letting the experience reshape you. But have you thought about the implications of this change?" His face faltered for a moment, and he took a step back to reassess, the spark slightly dimming in his eyes. "I don't know. Maybe I haven't thought big enough yet. Maybe this is just scratching the surface?" Grace felt her determination coalesce around those words. "Then let's dig deeper together. Look for what refines and challenges us, not just within the shelter, but in ourselves." He studied her, the intensity of his gaze revealing an awareness that mimicked her own internal revelation. In that moment, both realized they were standing on the cusp of profound personal evolution. They were inextricably linked. Their individual growth was going to require shared vulnerability. Their discussions meandered throughout the day, oscillating between lighter moments and intense reflections on life's struggles and triumphs. Sitting together on a bench during a break, Grace felt an unexpected warmth envelop their connection. She was learning to relinquish control, yearning for mutual dependence instead of unidirectional strength. "Tell me," Jack asked cautiously, "have you felt this call to help here? Or is it just me?" "No, it's both of us," she replied decisively. "We're not just helping, we're learning. Every interaction tests us. We're throwing ourselves into this unknown space, needing to confront the fear of inadequacy that defines our comforts." The sincerity brightened Jack's expression. But as they returned to the shelter, the nagging awareness of the potential fallout danced in Grace's mind. She grappled with the burnout that often accompanies deep involvement in altruism versus the simultaneous expansion of self. "What's next for us?" she questioned gently. Jack met her with an intensity that bordered on desperation. "Maybe it's time we start defining this journey beyond just volunteer hours. What if there was more we could give, or learn from ourselves?" As they faced another wave of people arriving for meals, uncertainty washed over her. The future felt as precarious as ever. They had taken the first step, but the road ahead was still obscured, overflowing with unanswered questions. "Are we prepared to face what we might uncover?" she whispered, a quiet invocation to the universe. What awaited them next would demand not just answers, but also the bravery to confront the truths they had buried. The silence hung heavily between them, rich with potential yet fraught with tension, as they poised themselves on the edge of a revelation, one that could alter the course of everything they had begun. The following week felt interminable. Grace arrived at the shelter each day, now a battleground for her thoughts. Shadows under her eyes betrayed sleepless nights rife with questions. Every encounter had pierced deeper than she anticipated, igniting a yearning for clarity. Truth was woven into every conversation, yet confronting it felt like peering into an abyss. Despite the routine of serving meals and sharing smiles, Grace felt the pull of something more profound. She began to journal her observations, not just of the people she met, but of herself. Each entry forced her to peel away layers long since buried: self-doubt, fear of mediocrity, and a constant cycle of comparison. The raw honesty in her writing transformed them from burdens into stepping stones. Jack's evolving spirit mesmerized her. She couldn't help but compare his courage with her reluctance. On one particularly intense afternoon, Jack shared stories of individuals who had overcome adversity. Each tale vibrated with resilience, prompting question after question to dance in Grace's mind. What had she transformed within herself? They discussed change over their shared meals, the air saturating with hope and apprehension. But soon, Grace realized it wasn't enough just to reflect. She broached an idea that had been brewing. What if we create a series of workshops? A safe space for people to confront their stories, to voice the truths they often hide. The idea ignited a fire in Jack, aimlessly wandering around their immediate reality for too long. Intrigued, yet wary of the implications, he nodded. It could help us all. Yet doubt gnawed at Grace's insides. This venture could thrust her toward the forefront, a position she had always shied away from. But what if we fail? What if we're not equipped for this? She challenged, forcing herself to confront the root of her anxieties. Failing's part of growth, Jack replied softly, his voice steady. We have to be willing to exist in that vulnerability. His conviction resonated deep within her, sparking the beginning of a tentative resolve. Determined to explore this new trajectory, Grace set up their first workshop. She illuminated a room filled with familiar faces, those she had served meals to, a congregation of souls seeking connection. As she stood before them, that sense of familiarity morphed into a visceral vulnerability, almost paralyzing. Taking a breath, she began, acknowledging her nervousness. I know we all carry stories that shape us, but can also anchor us. Today, let's begin to share those stories, to reshape how we see ourselves. A wave of collective anxiety seemed to roll through the group, unsettling yet so familiar. The initial moments were fraught with silence. Then, one by one, individuals dared to share snippets of their lives. The weight of their truths hung in the air, raw, bitter, and yet cathartic. Grace felt an exhilarating rush flow through her, igniting an intensity she had never experienced. As others spoke, it shifted the focus from the fear of her capabilities to the urgency of connection. After the workshop concluded, she walked away feeling transformed. Every trembling voice had unraveled something inside her, exposing the core of her hesitations. As they shared their stories of hardship and resilience, she understood this wasn't just about helping. It was equally about her own healing. Yet, entirely consumed by an insatiable need for self-understanding, there remained an unsettling question in the air. They were delving deeper, but were they unearthing motivations too painful to confront? Her heart raced with the thrill of discovery, yet the landscape ahead felt uncharted and treacherous. One evening, as they prepped for the next workshop, Jack caught her gaze. What if we approach this not just as facilitators, but as fellow explorers of our truths? What if our growth matters just as much as everyone else's? Alive with hope but laden with uncertainty, Grace replied. Then it settled. We'll not only guide them but walk through this together, taking on whatever comes. They stood at the precipice of something raw and unvarnished, but beneath the surface, questions festered like old wounds. What would they discover about themselves? How would it change the people they had already become? As she glanced at the spiral of notes in her hand, Grace felt the atmosphere thicken with anticipation, welcoming fear and possibilities alike. Each step forward meant confronting not just others' truths, but her own, and that realization surged through her veins like fire. But with that embrace of uncertainty, another haunting question emerged. How far would they go in pursuit of authenticity? The workshop was not just a gathering. It was a crucible for facing the shadows they all harbored, something that could either elevate or unravel everything they'd begun to build. The following sessions brought unexpected, profound revelations. Grace noticed a stark shift not only within herself but in the entire workshop dynamic. Each week, it felt as if they were chiseling away the remnants of their fears, exposing what lay beneath. As stories unfolded, a tapestry of shared humanity emerged, woven with threads of pain, hope, and resilience. However, with each revelation, Grace sensed an escalating pressure. The vulnerability she encouraged in others mirrored her own. What if her own truths were too heavy to bear? The idea that she could be viewed as a leader, someone with answers, felt increasingly burdensome. As participants enlightened her with their narratives, flashes of discomfort ricocheted through her. How could she guide others when she felt on the brink of unraveling herself? Jack proved to be an astute partner through this journey, bringing clarity when her thoughts spiraled. One afternoon, he caught her in a moment of silence, her pen hovering over the page. "What's holding you back?" he queried, his gaze steady, his voice a soothing anchor. "I have so many layers to peel back," Grace confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "What if I expose something that can't be healed?" "Then let it be. That's part of the process," Jack urged, his conviction unfaltering. "The deeper we delve, the more the light can filter through." Her heart raced as she accepted his challenge. That week, during an activity focusing on their childhoods, those foundational years molding who they are, Grace decided to take a personal leap. It would be her turn to share a pivotal moment of her life, that time when self-doubt took root and flourished, overshadowing her early dreams of being an artist. Starved for authenticity, she took a deep breath before the group. "When I was a girl, I would disappear into my art. But growing up, my family didn't see it as real, just a hobby." She felt each word catch in her throat. "I let their opinions anchor me. I lost the boldness to create." A hush enveloped the room. Each participant seemed engrossed, not just in her words, but in the shared experience of suffocation by external expectations. As she continued, recounting the gradual dimming of her passion, she realized she was echoing many of their struggles. Grace initially anticipated judgment or discomfort, but instead, she felt a wave of empathy wash over her. It spread throughout the room as they collectively grasped a shared struggle, the battle against external validation that stunted personal expression. The raw openness sparked connections, igniting conversations about their own fears and aspirations. As the workshop wrapped up, a renewed energy pervaded the space. Grace stepped outside for fresh air, her mind racing. Was this what true authenticity felt like? Discomfort transformed into empowerment. Unearthing her past became a shared burden, not just her own. Empowered by this realization, she committed to nurturing her creativity once again, not as a pastime, but as an essential part of her identity. However, doubt still lingered like a fog. What if this new path led her to a confrontation she wasn't prepared to face? She realized they were on the brink of a different kind of exploration, one that demanded facing the judgments of the past and embracing her truer self. Later that evening, while reflecting on her experiences, she heard a nearby rustle, breaking her thoughts. Jack stood there, his eyes searching hers. "You were incredible today. Your courage to share will inspire others." For a moment, her chest tightened. Jack could see her growth, but could she? "What if they realize I'm still a mess inside?" she whispered, the fragility of her confidence surfacing. "Growth isn't linear. Whatever comes next, you are still worthy. It's time to confront those shadows, Grace." That challenge resonated within her, an invitation to confront not only her past, but also to plan for her future. As they delved deeper into self-exploration together, uncertainty tinged every interaction, yet a new resolve began to take shape. Standing on the precipice of her complexities, she felt an awakening within. What truth still lay buried within her, waiting to erupt? The air thickened with promise and trepidation. How far would she be willing to go for authenticity? And more importantly, could she face her shadows without retreating? It was becoming undeniable. Every workshop opened a door to her inner turmoil, and she was ready, but willing to shatter what remained of her carefully constructed facade. The journey ahead was fraught with unknowns, and it called to her like a siren song. Grace awoke the following day, renewed with a commitment that felt powerful and authentic. Her reflections on the previous day's shared vulnerability ignited something profound within her. At last, she resolved to embrace her true ambition, artistic expression, no longer as an elusive dream, but as an integral facet of her identity. This choice was no longer a rejection of who she had been. It was about redefining her sense of self in connection to her past and future. As she prepared for another workshop, her mind buzzed with ideas that had long been buried. With each brushstroke on canvas, she wanted to arm others with the same courage that had sparked her revelation. The notion filled her with exhilaration, but it also beckoned a profound fear of exposing her newly found essence in an unguarded space. Arriving at the shelter, Grace wore her determination like armor. Jack was already there, engaged in animated conversation with another participant. Their laughter warmed her heart, and she admired his growing empathy toward those they served together. She saw how he stood in the midst of struggle, no longer merely an observer, but an active participant, someone truly present. "Hey!" Jack turned to her as she approached. "Are you ready for today? I can feel something special brewing." "I am," she replied confidently, though doubt still flickered like a candle in the back of her mind. "I think we should create a space to share not just stories but aspirations." "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" Jack asked, his eyes widening with excitement. "Yes. Let's culminate this journey into something actionable and tangible. A workshop focused on embracing creative expression. Allow people to explore their hidden passions through art, writing, music, whatever speaks to them. We can help each other break free from the constraints that bind us." Jack's expression morphed into a blend of admiration and challenge. "That's an ambitious proposal. Are you ready to lead this, Grace? Because to facilitate the exploration of dreams is to expose your own." Taking a deep breath, she affirmed, "I am. I've discovered that part of my path lies in guiding others back to their own creativity, allowing our collective vulnerabilities to transform into strength." As the workshop progressed, the atmosphere shifted, buzzing with an undercurrent of hope and intrigue. Grace stood before the assembled group and articulated a vision, one rooted in shared expression and mutual exploration. "Today, we are abandoning judgment and preconceived limitations. Let's reconnect with what inspires us and ignite the spark that's waiting to be rekindled within us." With that, she guided them through exercises, unlocking their creative spirit through collaborative storytelling and exploratory art. She could feel their trepidation slowly morphing into excitement, enabling each to embrace their contributions without shame. If it were true that vulnerability breeds connection, then today was a testament to that philosophy. As participants submitted their works and stories, Grace witnessed transformations unfold in front of her. A woman timidly painted a vivid scene from her childhood, a moment of joy resurrected after years of suppression. A young man crafted rap verses capturing his journey, using his voice to express pain that had gone unheard. Each creation became a thread woven through the fabric of their dialogue. Amid the celebration of creativity, Grace's heart raced as her turn came. Her own canvas, a bright mix of colors, lines, and patterns, exemplified the tumult and triumph inside her. "This represents my journey of rediscovery," she began, her voice steady. "For years, I allowed external constraints to dim my spirit, but I am determined to rise and embrace my voice once more." A palpable silence enveloped the room. By relinquishing control over her insecurities, she found strength in sharing something core to her identity. The resulting applause felt not just like validation, but as a collective roar of support. They were manifesting the courage she had long sought, not just in herself, but in each other. With that instant of realization came a surge of empowerment. Grace felt affirmed not just as a facilitator, but also as a creator. Not just a mother, but an artist. And she understood the profound connection between their individual journeys. Each story shared was a victory, reinforcing their bond and commitment to transformation. In the days that followed, Grace continued to lead workshops, not merely as a guide, but also as a participant. Each session reinforced her newfound identity, creating a ripple effect that spread throughout their lives. Jack became an active ally, helping facilitate connections, continually immersing himself in this artful landscape of self-discovery, intrinsic value, and mutual growth. Recognition, too, came pouring in from the community. Word spread about their unique initiative, an art-centered approach that not only served meals, but also nourished the spirit. Soon, they received invitations to showcase participants' artwork at local gatherings, creating a platform for underrepresented voices to be seen and heard. Grace welcomed the blossoming support with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. The affirmations validated both her and Jack's efforts. Yet even with accolades starting to ripple outward, Grace grappled with residual insecurities unleashed by her transformation. As she and Jack approached the day of their first community showcase, doubt crept in like a shadow. Would they truly be capable of embodying the change they had ignited? She scrutinized the new layers of responsibility she had embraced, wondering if she could sustain this journey. On the fateful day of the showcase, people gathered in anticipation. Grace stood surrounded by vibrant pieces that represented the stories untold, each an embodiment of struggle and tenacity. As she gazed at the collection, Jack's hand found hers, his unwavering support emboldening her spirit. "Whatever happens today, we did this," he reassured her, his eyes reflecting confidence. Emboldened as she addressed the gathering, Grace resonating in each word, she felt not fear, but gratitude. We embarked on this journey to embrace our truths, to unravel the layers that hide our genuine selves. Today is not merely an exhibition, it's a celebration of courage. The applause swelled, warm and exhilarating, affirming the impact they had created together. As they concluded, Grace felt fulfilled in ways she had spent years searching for. Here she stood, not merely a nurse, but a nurtured artist, mother, and champion of voices bound by silence. Venturing not just for herself, but for myriad stories intersecting with her own, she embraced this newfound identity completely. In that perfect moment, she understood it was the fruit of their labor, the essential construction of an unapologetic life she had long desired. She was no longer anchored by her fears, but liberated in her authenticity. With a heart full of pride and spirit soaring, Grace reached across the canvas of their future, gleefully mapping the sketches, the stories waiting to unfold. Every step forward would demand courage, but she knew she was ready for whatever lay ahead. This was the moment she had been destined for, where every piece fell together in her soul, reinvigorating her purpose and illuminating the essence of self-definition, growth, and transformation. And in that realization, she felt a surge of hope, vibrantly reaffirming that empowering oneself was the greatest art of all. Now, it's time for you to step into your own journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could change your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm because every click makes a difference in spreading these stories. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts matter, and we want to hear them. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Your support can inspire others on their paths of personal overcoming. Ready to embrace your journey? Take action now.